Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell. When did growth become the crystal meth, the drug of the capitalist reality? Growth is killing our planet. You cannot be sustainable and be growing as an organization at the same time. Flat is the new black, the new corporate trend. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Ken Hughes. Welcome back to the channel. This video I've had in my head for about, I would say, 2 years. I've had this thought and I keep meaning to sit down and write a piece and make a video about it, and that is this. I'm kind of tiring of the hypocrisy around sustainability in our modern capitalist growth-fueled world. And it's a wonderful quote by a ecological philosopher called Edward Abbey. And he said, "Growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of a cancer cell." This idea that growth is what drives everything. And really, when you look at our corporate world, I don't know any executive or board or person in any sales or marketing role or any C-level role at all that doesn't have growth as a key KPI. That growth is the success barometer that we use in modern society. If you're not growing, if your business isn't growing, if your profits aren't growing, if your sales aren't growing, you as the CEO or the board member are likely fired. Now, look, I'm not against growth. I see the excitement in growth. I remember my kids as they were growing physically every year, we'd notch off that pencil mark. And I remember the squeals of delight as they would grow a little bit every year. And now, of course, they're 18 and the growth has stopped. And I'm glad it stopped, because if my son kept growing 3 or 4 inches every year, he would eventually be 24 or 30 feet high by the time he was 50. And so it's unsustainable. You can't have everlasting growth because it's unsustainable. And that's where we're in. I think I'm really fascinated. All these events I spend time at, it's very rare that there wouldn't be some kind of sustainability speech or some kind of panel discussion around the sustainability agenda. And every single company I work with and every single company report I pick up, the greenwashing is everywhere. Every single company says, yes, sustainability is at the heart of everything we do. And yet, those same companies will then come out later, maybe at the event I'm speaking at, or in their own press releases and saying, we intend to double our sales in 5 years. We intend to increase our market share substantially by 2026. We intend to saturate developing markets as our own markets have now got to maturity. And so their growth focus is very clear, but at the same time, they kind of have this sustainability agenda. And I just don't think those two things fit together. I don't think you can grow, because growth is killing our planet, both population-wise and diminishing natural resources. And so you can't keep growing. You can't keep opening another 50 stores every year. You can't keep pushing into emerging markets. You can't keep putting more trucks on the road, more parcels on the road. Because every time you expand the business, you expand the footprint, you expand the amount of natural resources we're being used. So I'm curious as to where we're going. And the title of this speech and keynote and article is called "Flat is the New Black." And that's the idea that, well, maybe flat is what we should be aiming for. It's like, where did this growth ideology come from in the first place? Because everyone that went to university and MBA and every position you've had since, growth has been at that. No one questions growth. Growth has been at the heart of your KPI. And if you stood up at a boardroom meeting and said, I propose that we don't grow, in fact, that we maybe shrink a little bit or that we keep flat, everyone would look at you and they might laugh and you might lose your job. And where has that I know meaning and purpose, growth is part of that, and growth is certainly driven by male ego, and that's an issue. It's a debate for another video. But I think our unquestioning acceptance of growth is morally wrong. And I think morals always change in society, because you think about it, if you think back to the 1950s, where if you were a person of color, if you were a black person getting on a bus, you had a place that you were supposed to sit in, separate from the white people. Imagine if you suggested that to someone today, they'd punch you in the face, and then rightly so. So things change. Like in the 80s, it was a slur to call someone gay in the playground, a nasty slur, but it wouldn't happen today. In the 90s, lots of sitcoms and sketch comedy shows featured transgender skits, and that wouldn't happen today. And so those things keep changing. The morals in societies keep changing. I wonder, will we get to the point where in 30 or 40 years, as we're genuinely killing the planet, as the kind of sustainability agenda has moved from the corporate social responsibility tick box kind of thing to actually keeping the planet alive, to really investing in sustainability, will we change our attitude to growth? Like, will we be sitting around a boardroom table and when someone say the G word and everyone gets a bit embarrassed, as if you just called someone gay in the playground? Don't be suggesting we grow. Don't be suggesting that we kill the planet. What we're trying to do here is sustain. And so growth is generally driven by a profit. desire. And of course, shareholders owning the company push that. They want higher dividends, they want higher return on their share price, they want to sell the share price, they want the company to do well. And so I think what's going to happen is maybe in the future we'll have shareholders who don't want to return on their investment financially. They want to invest in companies that will help the planet actually live. So the growth ideology, where it comes from economically, of course, if you talk to any economist, most of the speeches I give at performances, there's always an economist who opens up the day. Kind of state of the nation, tweed jacket. I think they hand out tweed jackets to economists when they qualify at university. And so they would give that kind of interest rates, inflation, growth, and the audience eat up the growth part because that's the crystal meth of our capitalist world, corporate world. What's the growth? What's the growth? If it's at 3%, we need to grow at 5%. If it's at 10%, we need to grow at 15%. And so they're all hanging on these, and I've spoken to those economists afterwards about, well, why is growth a thing? Like, why do we have to grow? And the theory behind the reason that growth is an inherent part of everything is that from a GDP point of view, like from a government country point of view, if you have growth, then you've got a higher tax take. With a higher tax take, you build more hospitals and schools and road networks. Therefore, you increase the quality of life for the residents. That makes sense then. So you grow, you get better things, but there comes a point, of course, where the curve flattens out, and you wouldn't deny like a small rural Cameroonian village who has no road network, has no water, has no education, has no healthcare, those things. So yeah, I have no problem with that growth ideology in developing markets that need the growth to fuel better quality of life. But you could ask yourself, well, hang on, in our developed world, that we have all these things already, and yes, they could be better, but we have them. And also, at some point when a company invests and has a certain amount of scale and starts to earn some profit, why don't we stop? Like, why do we have to have more profit, more growth? Once costs are covered, once everyone's making a bit of money, why do we have to keep growing? Like when you walk down a street in Hanoi or Chiang Mai and you see a Burger King, why is that Burger King there? Like, were the Thai and Vietnamese people just really passionate and hungry for a Whopper? I doubt it. I would say that, the developing markets that they were already in had matured, and therefore they went and looked for other markets, emerging markets, to push into, to feed the growth monster. And so we have to think about growth and maybe consider that flat is our new black. Flat is the trendy thing. Now, generally we see flat as a bad thing. If you wake up and you have a flat tire, starts your day badly. If you have a beer or a Coca-Cola and it's flat, not great. If you try and go skiing on a flat slope, it's not much fun. And so flat generally isn't something that we want, other than our abs. We'd all love flatter abs. But so flat has this kind of negative connotation. And I wonder, should that shift? That's the curious, just the one question out of today's video and article. Should we consider flat as the new black? Flat as the new corporate trend? That's the thing to aim for. And that's the sustainable model. So I don't think it's like oil and water. You can't say, let's be sustainable as a company, but let's grow at the same time. And don't give me that corporate nonsense about growing sustainably. That's like punching someone in the face and then helping them with their bloody nose. You're better off not punching them in the face in the first place. And so, yeah, flat. Let's aim for flat. Let's challenge growth. So at the next board meeting, at the next strategy session, when they're saying, well, let's grow by 5 or 10%, why don't you put your hand up and say, how serious is this organization around sustainability? Because if we genuinely are serious, then why are we growing? Like, no one questions it. Why are we growing at 5%? Why don't we just stay where we are? Earn the same profits as we did last year, maybe even less. Do we need all the profits? How can we help the planet? Because another fast fashion brand, another 50 stores, more trucks, it's not going to help the sustainability piece. And eventually this is going to come to a point where morally maybe growth becomes a bad thing. Flat is the new black. Flat is the new corporate trend. Who knew? The flat earthers were right. The world would be a happier place if it was flat. Now I'm off to the gym to work on these abs, try and teach them to be flat. Until next time, I'm Ken Hughes.